Fronlines.
Shall we begin?
I'm pounding the salt. I'm pounding the pavement day after day. I'm making waves and I'm making waves. And today, my friends, we are going to make trucking great again. We are going to do it one day, one show, and one dream at a time. Two ways of doing this for me are through this show, Truckin Fronlines. Ideally, when schedules go right, they are Saturdays at 11 and Wednesdays at 8. If you're in trucking, you know what trucking schedules are like. Today's schedule had me driving way late in the evening. I needed a little bit of sleep. I also need to be somewhere in another 2 days, quite far away. Load after load, we deliver, we get the job done. My mission here is the truth in broadcasting because you are inundated every day with story after story after story. It's always the same negative, negative, negative. I get it. Trucking's a hard business. But if you listen to the media, it's all about them. It's all about we're going here, we're going there. Hell, President Biden was on the tube not long ago saying we'd be out of a job in 4 or 5 years. Well, I'm still here, and so are you. So let's explore trucking from a perspective of why we're still here, what it would look like if the world had no trucks. Today's broadcast, I want you to go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know in the chat what you think of the stories, what you think of the discussion, and what you think of the industry. I'd certainly like to know your feedback, and I'd like to know what you think of this entire thing we call a trucking industry. Checking my messages here as we are live. You never know. Every day is a holiday. So we got two ways you can talk to me. One is you can leave a chat, comment. If you're watching this on a replay, you can certainly leave a comment below the video. You can also send us an email at that'struckingnews@outlook.com. That's truckingnews@outlook.com. You can also give us a call here on our studio line, 860-785-3547, 860-785-3547. As I'm chatting with you, I'm also making a final check to make sure that everything is working right. We have green lights on everything, it looks like. So I welcome your input. But I'd like to talk first, before introducing our guest today, about a world without trucks. I want to credit my lovely wife with the idea. She hears me talk about this all the time. In fact, one of my slogans on my other channel, That's Truckin', if you'd like to be so game to check it out, is without trucks, you get it yourself. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something. A world without trucks is not that far off in the future. If the industry itself and those responsible for decision making don't change their ways. Imagine, if you will, a world where the hum of the diesel engines and the sight of a big rig crossing the highways is but a distant memory. A world where the backbone of our economy, the lifeline of our daily lives, simply disappears. Let's consider our grocery stores. Without trucking, grocery store shelves would take on a whole different picture. They would be bare. Fresh produce and dairy, they wouldn't exist, if at all. We'd have to go some delivery route or some, hell, for that matter, you'd have to get in your own car and drive to the local farm. Our local farmers markets might thrive for a short while, but the demand would quickly outstrip the supply. Let's think about medical supplies. Hospitals rely on a constant flow of deliveries from everything from life-saving medicines to surgical instruments. Without trucks, these crucial things could not get to the front lines of the trauma centers all across the world. The construction industry would literally grind to a halt. The materials that we use, the 2x4s, the plywood, the insulation, all of the very nails, screws, and things that hold our homes together would not make it to the construction sites. These people would have to charge astronomical prices just to build our houses because they would have to go to the source themselves. Quick story about a fellow that run a grocery store. He's a grocer named Sam. He'd been running for over 30 years, proudly serving fresh produce, dairy, and essentials to loyal customers. And every morning, a truck would pull up, delivering these goods that kept his store's shelves stocked. One day, the truck didn't come. He called the supplier and said he'd been told that the trucking company had gone out of business. Suddenly, that lifeline of deliveries he depended on was all of a sudden cut off. He watched helplessly as week after week his shelves grew emptier and emptier. First, the fruits and vegetables disappeared, then the dairy products. Soon, even the the goods were no longer there and able to be supplied to his store. He eventually had to close down and sell the business. So as we continue on, let's think about both extremes, both on the bad side and yet on the good side. Because you know what? The fact that we're talking about this opens up an incredible world of awareness to everyone. Hey, this isn't so much an impossibility, but a possibility. Now I raise it because every time you turn around and you look it up, going out, bankruptcy. It's just it's absolutely nuts. And from the perspective of someone who does the job, myself, it's rather unnerving. But then again, is it? We're going to talk amongst the panelists. We're going to check out your comments. So take a moment while we're gathering everybody together and introing everybody. Go down, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, become regular and familiar with Truckin Fronlines, and pay attention as I come up with more videos and subject matter to talk about in Trucking City Journal. Because this is something that's facing us. It's something that's not going away. Our economy needs help. And it's people like you and me that make it happen. People like the guy I'm about to bring on. World's funny man in his own right. But he's got a serious bone in his body every once in a while. Driving with John. How you doing, John?
I'm very well. Stop spreading bad rumors about me. I have no serious bones.
You got a serious bone today, my friend. You're sitting still. That's a
I got a
bone.
serious bone to pick, maybe.
Anyway, so when it comes to life without trucks, Biden a few years back tried to make it sound like, oh, in 4 years. Well, and what do you think? Are you particularly unnerved with that, or, forgetting it's the president we're talking about, just in media in general? If you pull up on Google trucking bankruptcies, you've got an assload of stories. that sit there and really unnerve somebody if they don't know the industry. What do you think?
Well, you got to do context here, okay? That video clip was from 2019, so
Yeah,
that
yeah. I mean,
context is important. But I do believe he believes that that's still true. I will say
yeah,
that. Um,
yeah.
by the things he says and the actions he takes, I do believe that eventually he does want to put us out of business because
Seems we lost your audio there,
you
John.
know, and you know, as the world advances, I'm not saying that day won't come because
Yeah,
there is going to be a day that comes. I
yeah,
lost my audio.
yeah,
You can't hear me?
yeah. For a second you cut. Yeah, for a second you cut
No,
out. You're
no.
you're good now, but there must be a
Oh,
there
sorry.
must be a
Sorry about
delay.
that.
There must be a delay in your
Oh,
internet signal. But we'll work through it. We'll work through it. We're going to
yeah.
check
Sorry
with a
about
couple of
that.
comments.
I don't get to pick the
Yeah,
internet signal.
yeah, that's true. We're going to check with a couple of comments because one caught my eye here. Midlife Trucker says trucking, like everything else, is going to evolve. It's going to change. Those who can adapt will do well. Those who can't, stay no more, my friend. Yes. And I mean, it doesn't really unnerve me, but, it is something worth paying attention to because, we're going to get into some of the reasons why some of these stories are what they are. And, they are worth paying attention to because, you know what? With every failure, there is a lesson. And that's one of the purposes behind today's show is what can we learn from it? And, somebody who's out and about and actually part of the usual cast and crew. I'd like to know what the grumpy old man has to say. So let's bring him on. Grumpy old trucker, how you doing, my friend? Are you able to chat with me a minute about trucking companies and what the world would be like without trucks? What's your thoughts? Well, it seems like he's incognito at the moment and unable to chat. We'll get back to him in just a few minutes. In the
I'll
meantime,
play Grumpy Old Trucker.
hey, there you go. Play all you want.
Well, the trucking insurance is not doing very well, you know, and for the factor that if we're just gonna like get rid of drivers, you know, it's not doing very well.
Yeah, right. Nice likeness. I'll give it that. The internet even went as grumpy as you did there for a second. So, at least it's cooperating. Want to welcome in Jack Knight TV. He says, got an ATV and a motorcycle gangs doing donuts in front of the Washington Monument. I think there's a lot of problems going on. That's only going to get worse. Well, yeah, especially if dude wants to keep tires on his ATV. That's for darn sure. Welcome in, and I thank you for that little ditty. I appreciate that. Chief Freight Hauler's with us. Good afternoon, sir. I appreciate you joining the show. Um, Something I missed here a minute ago. Were grocery store shelves bare before trucking as we know it today? Good point. You know what I mean? Kind of one of the points I was trying to raise with my little, opening story was, I mean, we got along well before trucking, and God forbid something happens, we'll still get along. It'll be an entirely different world, but we'll still get along. As his former comment had indicated, for those who can adapt, they'll do well. For those who can't, well, dot dot dot. I mean, good point. Midlife trucker, good for you. I'm
Let
glad
me
you
weigh in
added
on
that.
that one.
Sure, go ahead. As he
Yes,
freezes.
there were grocery stores before trucking, but the way we do grocery stores now is a whole different monster than what we did back then. Everything was local supplied, local grown, and the variety was not there. To exist, we'd have to go back to that.
True that. Yes, you are so right. We would. And you know
and it
what?
would
I mean,
change a lot in everybody's lives. Not to say that it wouldn't grocery stores wouldn't exist, but they would.
true. And well, think about the gig
I hate this
economy
delay. I'm
and what
sorry.
kind of. I know, I do too. We'll adapt. We'll get along with it. But think about your statement in terms of the gig economy, how things are unfolding even today, despite trucks and despite their responsibility in delivering all the packages you and I order online. Um, even without that being a factor, everybody in the world basically is almost by default um, falling back on a let's order it and have it delivered. And it's coming in the sense that less and less trucks are involved and more delivery vans are involved. How do you think that affects things?
Well, anytime you're dealing with, like, if you're around like New York City,
I get 50 pounds for
or
$27.
Chicago, LA, a lot less semis go into the city. They deliver outside the city, and it's brought into the city on, he wants 50 pounds for $27. You heard it here first. So,
Yeah, I was trying to cue him up so that when you finish talking, I can bring him on.
but yeah, a lot of the
I
cities,
got
that's
two guests
how they
backstage right now.
do their business now. But that's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, you
we
got
got
two
we
guests backstage?
yeah, I got him and I got somebody else waiting. So let me see
Let me
if you can
say
work
let me
out.
say one more thing real quick here,
Go ahead, go
before you
ahead,
bring anybody else on.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, one more thing, and then I'm going to jump out and reconnect and see if that helps. So one more thing I want to add to that is, if like right now the trucking industry is not in a good place. Like we all know that. Like it's now some people, like, yes, if you put yourself in the right position, you can do well, but that doesn't change the fact that right now, um, most truck drivers, even company drivers, are actually hurting. Like we're not making as much money as we're used to making, and we're having trouble having ends meet because you live to the standards of money that you make normally. That's how normal people live. Um, and so that's part of the problem right now. And so the things that we're going to be discussing today directly relates to that particular situation. Each individual trucker as what I'm talking about. So.
Amen. You are so right there. John, try to reconnect and see if we can get your delay somewhat worked out. In the meantime, I'm going to move on to the next guest in the house, Grumpy Old Trucker. Let's see if you've gotten your bartering down to a science. If you are willing to join the living, how's it today?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Man? Yes, I can hear you.
I'm
I'm
still in incognito mode, but I can speak for a short period of time.
That's fine. That's fine. Any words spoken are better than none. I always say silence is your undoing. So what do you think? What are your thoughts about a world without trucks as relates to what John and I just talked about?
Well, obviously, if you didn't have a world with trucks, and you wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing currently, which is getting stuff for the house that's needed, that just wouldn't happen.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I'm kind of glad that we do have us truck drivers.
Yep. Yep. Do you think the world as it were is kind of defaulting to a world of, smaller deliveries, kind of shop by demand type thing, barring what you're doing right now? I hear the Walmart cash registers going off in the background.
Sorry.
Let's see if people, no. I'm picking on you. I mean, let's think about it. People nowadays sit back at their computers, they order things, they have them delivered to their house, all these Amazon packages and Amazonification, if you will. I mean, what do you think? I mean, less trucks, more vans. What do you think that's something to worry about, or I don't know? Quickly, your thoughts on that.
I really don't feel that's a good plan, because a lot of our food and groceries, that we get has to be refrigerated, and if it's not delivered in a timely manner, then you're going to wind up having spoiled food and people sick. So, I don't think that would be a good plan.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. One more guest we have in the house. I'm sure he'll liven up the conversation, no doubt. He no doubt has an opinion about this. A world without trucks. Well, let's hear from Midlife Trucker. God bless you. Good day, and welcome to the show.
Well, good afternoon. Now I'm going to throw it in the punch bowl. You're not looking at the future. There will be a world without OTR trucks. It's going to happen, and it's probably going to happen in the next 10 years. And I don't mean 100% OTR trucks gone.
Right.
But the majority of OTR trucking is going to be gone, and we, the truck drivers, are going to cause it. We're going to cause it because we start demanding to be paid overtime. We start demanding to be paid for every hour we're in the truck.
Right.
And the companies are going to say, okay, let's see, what other way can we do it? Or we're going to pitch a little bitch and refuse to go to New York City and say, oh, a third of the truck drivers won't go to New York City because we don't like their politics. Okay, do you really think that our government is going to allow, or even our industry, even if the government didn't do it, would our industry allow a group of people like truck drivers to hold a city hostage? No, they would not. They would come up with a solution, and the solution would be they would no longer need truck drivers. And that solution could be they bring it in on rail and then use local drivers. That solution could be autonomous trucks. There's a lot of possible ways to solve the problem. They had products in stores before trucks existed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, we are not the cowboys of the road. We are not the white knights. We're not out here to where people should be worshiping us. We're truck drivers. We're getting paid to deliver cargo, and we get paid well to deliver it.
Yes, we do.
There's not too many other careers. You can go to 3 weeks worth of school, 5 weeks worth of training. Here's the keys to a Kenworth. Have at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
one of the trends that I've noticed with some of the stories I was researching just to do this piece today is that a majority of the smaller companies, now when I say smaller, don't confuse, apples and oranges. When I say smaller companies, I'm talking about those companies with less than 10 trucks.
97% of the carriers.
Right. Now, a majority of the closings are from companies that meet that very criteria. And here too is another statistic. Most of, I want to say 75% or higher of these companies that fit that criteria are closing because of maintenance and safety related issues. Now, if you want to talk about job security, the best way to ensure job security is to maintain your equipment. When you have problems and you start developing issue after issue, inspection after inspection with negative feedback and violations.
What companies have shut down over maintenance?
Well, a couple of the ones that I highlighted in today in what I'm about to come up with was let me look ahead in my notes because you hit me off guard with that.
That's my job.
Yeah, you do that quite a bit. Actually, I highlighted it as a point. So let me.
Okay, well,
hold on. Yeah. Patriot Transport, higher than average out of service rate. And I think their highest rate was somewhere over. I had 11.
Well, let's look them up. Patriot Transport, DOT.
I have it right here. They've been inspected 10 times, and they've been placed out of service in a 24-month period, resulting in a 30% out of service rate. That's higher than the national average.
Okay, so that means they got inspected 3 times. Let's be real. Those 3 times were probably the result of somebody getting a ticket.
Probably.
I mean, that's not a big enough sample for us to determine that's what put them out of business.
Well, that's one story I highlighted. I mean, I've got a whole Google result full of others that I saw. I just haven't selected stories. The point I was making, though, is that a greater number of companies are finding it hard to get the insurance and the budget behind them to make sure they can do the job safely and stay away from negative feedback and CSA scores, thereby increasing their bottom line, lowering their profitability. And it's no wonder they're going bankrupt because of that differential between keeping the equipment safe and demanding a high dollar from the customers. Because look at the argument that I posed a couple of weeks back with the what was the show that I did on the cameras. One of the pitfalls that they said they were looking to improve on with the cameras, Prime did, was that they said they wanted to look better to their customers. Well, they do that by putting the cameras in, lowering their insurance, increasing their bottom line. Same thing with maintenance. If you're not safe, customers aren't going to want to haul freight with you.
Yeah, they're not as bad as they're not as bad as the story makes them look. They've had 22 inspections, 14 of them did not have any violations, 8 had violations, and they've only had 6 crashes. Their driver out of service is 0. Right. So they're definitely in compliance on hours of service and all of that. Right. When you look them up, their violation summary: failure to use seatbelt while driving, failure to maintain lane, failure to obey traffic control device, and following too close. They are not. I'd like to look into Patriot and see what did put them out of business, because I don't think their violations put them out of business. They literally.
I'm sure there was other. I'm sure there was other factors, and I'll probably get to it here in just a minute because I'm going to be talking about them as the future story unfolds. But there were other factors, and with other companies, of course, there were other factors. But it's one that I felt was worth mentioning because I've seen other companies cite it as reasons for bankruptcies, whether it be because of maintenance issues, inspections, investors, what have you. I mean, there's a number of issues coming up on these stories, but
the first problem is they're from Illinois.
Yeah, there you go. And a couple of them were based out of California.
They're not going out. Mm-hmm. They're not going out. They're reorganizing. They're doing it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I noticed too. Look, I'm not trying to raise alarm bells here. All I'm trying to do is just bring awareness to the fact that it's happening, and let's explore. I mean, as you started your comment, Tom, it's going to happen whether it's by force or by choice. The problem is, and what I'm bringing up in this show is, what are we going to do with this information? Are we just going to let everything go and just let others make choices for us? Or are we going to actively participate in actually walking the line and maybe having an influence? That's the purpose behind today's show. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? I mean, what can we do individually anyway that would sort of change that? What are your thoughts,
Well,
Tom?
One of the things is we're always saying, what can the carrier do for me? Carrier can give me more money. They can pay me for the stops, pay me for every hour in the truck, pay me overtime. What can the carrier do for me? What can you do for your carrier? I mean, obviously don't hit stuff, don't tear stuff up, make sure you're going over your product. But what if you drove 5 miles an hour slower than your governor?
Yep.
How much fuel would you save? What if you planned your routes a little better and maybe cut down some of that excess mileage because you decided to take interstate? I mean, if you're not in a hurry to get to your goal, what if you drive for the load?
Yep. True.
And we don't think about what can we do for our carrier until the carrier's filing bankruptcy and they're wanting you to bring your truck in. And, at that point, it's a little late to think about what we can do for the carrier.
Yep. It's true. I mean, so individually, I think a lot of people, if you're a company driver anyway, I think individually, a lot of people don't collectively think of anybody but themselves. I mean, obviously, you're getting a paycheck, you're getting paid by the mile. So what difference is it to anyone if, let's say, you get stopped for a tire violation or defective equipment or whatever? I mean, I personally think the average company driver doesn't take seriously enough the job they do. Let me take a moment, Tom. let me notice a couple of comments that one I've been staring at here. John Wick, I don't know who you are. You're a new fella. Welcome to the show. He says, nothing like spending 6 months doing truck driver schools to get a CDL and all the endorsements to drive the truck. And because I don't have experience, can't get a job.
I want to address this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
This is a mistake so many people are making. It used to be we told everybody, don't go to a major company because you'll be locked into them for a year.
Yeah.
Go to a school that sets by itself. Here's the negative to that. You go to a school that sets by itself, you wind up with a CDL in your hand, no experience, no training, and no job. If you go to a mega carrier, if you go to the mega carrier, you may hate it, but you're there for a year, and when you leave there, you got your golden ticket in your pocket.
Exactly. Yes. A lot of people talk crap about mega carriers because they say that mega carriers that just one, you've done one, you've done them all. Well, in a lot of respects, that's sometimes the best way to get in. That's how I got in. I started with US Express, and my first year was with them. Then I moved on to Warner, and the rest is history. So, sometimes you've got to suck it up.
Quick? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We got you, Lima Charlie radio check.
We can hear you. I don't know if the delay problem is still there, John, but only you can tell me that.
I don't know. You'd have to tell me that.
Yeah, well, it looks like it's better than it was. So, Jackknife also come on. He says Amazon is expanding their drone service for deliveries. So that means less delivery drivers making an income, which means less people buying consumables, which trucking brings. Kind of to the point I was making, and before anybody else jumps in, it's not an alarm bell, but it's a trend. And that's why I opened the title and the thumbnail with what's trending in trucking, because you know what? Every trend has an effect. Every trend has a result. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, let them order. Let them order by the truckload. Let them order by the rail car load. I don't care. What helps others helps us. And I don't look at this as a complete negative. I look at this as a positive, a net positive. Because you know what? Yeah, they're going to get autonomous trucks. They're going to get all this stuff that you're talking about, Tom. But in the long run, it's not going to be snap the fingers, it's done tomorrow. You're out of a job. We don't need you. It may happen someday, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. So keep right on ordering them Amazon packages, and by all means, we're going to keep right on delivering them.
It'll be after we retire.
That's true. That's true. Maybe a next generation thing.
Let me.
Before we move on, John, you got something. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me add something. When I got booted out because my internet really sucks. I'm in the middle of nowhere. So yeah. I do apologize for any delays or issues that causes. But when I left, I heard the guy all the way over on the other side over here, Mr. Midlife, talking about how truckers whine, blah, 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 blah. I have a question about that. Now, should we never stand up for ourselves and never say something's not right? Otherwise we're whiners?
No, stand up for yourself. Stand up for yourself. Pitch a bitch. Unionize. Strike. Get yourselves together. Demand $200,000 a year. Demand $300,000 a year.
Down.
You'll be the highest paid person in the unemployment line.
Calm down, bet if you
demand enough, you can get your carrier in a bankruptcy filing.
What I'm saying is, I don't think it's wrong to. There is a point you can go too far, but when you see something that's not going right, like drivers not being treated correctly or things that are actual issues, there's nothing wrong with speaking up at all.
Respect is earned. Now, I'm so tired of the whiny, crying drivers. Respect is earned. Truck drivers aren't earning respect. You're out here pitching a bitch, throwing trash into parking lots. I wouldn't let truck drivers park on my property, and I am one.
Okay, Tom, I don't think the point.
Let me interrupt this important, less important conversation for something else. It has to do with that comment you just put up there.
Okay, John, you have the floor, my friend.
All right, yeah, Seven Seas is in the house. How you doing, Seven Seas? I just want to say something real important here, guys. I have a friend out there that's going through some really hard times, and he really needs some prayers for him, his wife, and his entire family. So if you're a prayer warrior and you want to throw some prayers out there, guys, get out there and pray for this guy. He's a truck driver. He's a good, honest, hardworking man, and he's there for his family as he needs to be. But as I went through something very similar with my wife being extremely ill and being a truck driver, the best thing you can do for this guy is pray for him. So that my heart goes out to you, buddy. I know you know who I'm talking about, and everybody out there, just God knows who you're talking about. You don't need to specify by names, but put your prayers out there for this truck driver and his family as they're going through a very hard time. So.
Yeah. And what this
That's
guy
all I
is
really want to
fired
say
up
about it.
about.
Just
Thank you for that word of encouragement and thought and prayer. And I will certainly say a great prayer for him. But what this guy is fired up about is the discussion over whether or not it's appropriate, as John said, to stand up for yourself. I mean, today's show is about the number of companies that are going under and some of the reasons behind it. But Tom brought up a good point early on in the show, which John kind of hit on. And that's, the reason companies are having, in his opinion, this is just Tom's opinion, mind you. The reason companies are having issues is because they're demanding too much. They're actually not running their companies right, and they're letting the drivers, in some cases, walk all over them. Do you think that's an accurate statement, Tom, or do you think I've kind of misread that a little bit?
I think there was such a competition to get drivers. Everybody was raising the pay. Everybody was increasing the benefits, buying better equipment. And now drivers expect it and demand it. Drivers expect to get home more often. And when they don't, they get upset. And this is a career that has a very low bar to entry. A lot of people didn't think about that because there's a lot of other people that'll take these jobs and aren't going to demand all that.
True that.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Sorry. I understand where Tom's coming from, but let me rebut that a little bit. When the market was doing great,
I lost him.
Yeah, people could demand it, and when the market was doing great, people can demand more and they get more. Right now, the market sucks. Has nothing to do with anybody whining or moaning. Has to do with the market sucking. So yes. Part of the problem is everybody, like the company drivers, all got raises during that time period, and now, the company's having trouble paying the bill. I get it, but when the market's good, the driver should get paid, and when the market's bad, maybe the driver doesn't make as much money. I mean, that's just the reality of trucking. I don't see anything
How
wrong
many drivers
if
accept
you're being
that?
mistreated. None, but. It's the reality of trucking. If you're being mistreated, you should stand up for yourself. But if you're just asking for more money in a horrible, weak market that we're in right now, then yeah, you're cutting off your own toes. So
True that. Let me bring in somebody who's been relatively quiet, only because he's sitting there shopping and doing stuff. So I want to bring him in and see what his thoughts on this whole conversation is, and see if he's got something to add to it. Grumpy old trucker, you've been awful quiet. You got something to add to this conversation we're having? Apparently, he's going to continue to be on mute because he's made it clear.
Come here. Hang on. I had to hit the button. I'm sorry. Golly, boss man, scold me later. I'm a bad boy.
You wasn't fast enough. No, I mean, this is a hot topic, my friend, and you deserve to weigh in on this. So by all means.
Well, the fact of it is, like I said, if this has got to do, I heard part of it because I was busy doing things too. This is my day for running around, and normally we do early morning shows, so I'm sorry about all this mess. But anyhow, if we're talking about the school situation, I'm telling you right now, yes, I agree that you should be able to do some more good training after you get out of school. I do agree with that. But let me tell you what, accredited schools like the one I went to, not once but twice, because I had to do a refresher course when I came back to doing Class A. Let me tell you, if they're not accredited, they're not going to teach you the right ways. Yes, there's a lot more to learn out there, like having to learn the mountains and all that kind of stuff. But let me tell you, you know, you can't find a better school system than the one that's PDTI or PTDI or something like that, which is professional driver training, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but let me tell you, you can't find a better one. So,
Yeah. Amen to that, man. Tell you what,
Here's
guys,
the problem.
let's,
You can graduate from the best trucking school there is, but that trucking school doesn't have a truck to put you into haul cargo. So now you're
ours
fighting.
actually,
Now
ours
you're
actually hauled hauled live loads. So
they
yes,
do. They do until you graduate. Once you've graduated, you've got to go look for a job. The problem
Okay,
is
gotta go
right
in
know,
and
now
I
for
you're
a
think I'm
second.
gonna
walking.
rename midlife. I think
Well, when
I
you,
think I'm gonna rename midlife. He's the older, grumpier trucker right now.
well, when you go looking for a job after you finish school, you're walking into all these companies and you have zero experience or 1 month experience, and they're all telling you, "Oh, we want 6 months experience. We want a year experience." And
we
that's
got
the problem. Now, if you go to
we got
their school, they don't care.
we got a caller on the line. Let's see what the caller has to say and what he'd like to add to the conversation. Welcome to the show, my friend. You are live on the air with Truckin City. What you got to add to this?
I'm not a he, I'm a she.
Well, welcome to the show, dear lady. What can I interest your comment in today?
Well, this is Girl in a Semi.
Welcome to the show. Glad you called.
Thank you. Hey, I missed a lot of the show, but I saw the title about trucking companies going out of business and stuff like that. I was also just listening about the school issue. That's a whole other thing. But the reason why I called is that I think that, I don't know if you guys already covered it, but part of the issue about these trucking companies going out of business is, we had, and I've been associated with 3 of them lately, that they overbought equipment, they hired every yahoo that walked in the door because they had a lot of freight to haul. Now there's no freight to haul, and these guys are just shutting the doors. I've got one recently that was handling a very, very, very big grocery account for me, and they just quit answering the phone, just shut the doors, sent everybody home. So it's the trucking companies have overextended themselves, first of all, and then addressing the school thing. Yeah, I think there needs to be, with these trucking companies that are hiring these guys out of school, that they need to have a better training program. They need to teach these guys common sense. They need to teach them how to scale a truck. They need to teach them what axle weights are. And I could go on and on and on.
Oh, true.
But
Yeah.
There's a lot of holes in the industry.
Yes.
That, I don't know. I thought about opening my own little consultation thing, and it's like, stick around me for a week, and I'll give you a crash course on the basics.
And that's 90%, I think 90% of the basic problem with, as Frank brought up, the PTLDI and different other curriculums they offer out there, is they give you the basics. But once you've got the basics, you've got absolutely no freaking clue what it is you're supposed to do to actually be successful in this business. And if someone could open a school, just like you said a minute ago, that included that basic in understanding, with not everything. I mean, obviously there's some things you cannot teach people. They have to learn on their own, but more than you get now, which is basically nothing. If someone could include that, they would make a freaking killing.
Okay. How would they make a killing? Would they get paid more for each truck driver?
Hold that thought, Tom.
I'm sorry.
Complete your thought,
Okay.
Girl Inside Mike. Go ahead.
I will tell you where the opportunity to get some of that type of training out there is. I've been investigating a lot of these community colleges, like for example, the one out here in my area. They hired me as a consultant to come in once a week and talk to these guys that are going through their CDL school through a community college, because they're not just doing what the the CDL schools, and just so you can pass your CDL and then they kick you loose.
Right.
These community college programs are teaching. They're going in depth and teaching these drivers more. How what. You got drivers out here who don't even understand, and you see it on the page. They don't even understand what it means to slide their tandem.
Right. Right. That's basic.
So,
That's basic. That is a failing at the school level. I mean, that is a basic basic function. Every school should show, and at least to a smaller degree, explain. Girl in the semi, hang tight just a minute. Don't go anywhere. Tom, you had a question a minute ago. What was your question?
Well,
Okay, can they make more? How are they going to make more money off those students?
How are they going to make money off more money?
How are they going to make more money off the students rather than CDL school has one purpose: get you your CDL license. Their job isn't to train you to drive the truck, to do the Qualcomm, to scale the load. That's not the job of the CDL school. That's the job of the carrier.
that's the problem.
But that's the mistake. The CDL school is to get you a CDL.
Right. Now I'll speak for myself, and I'm gonna let Girl in Semi finish off the comment, but I'm gonna address it this way. You pay for a basic curriculum, yes. As you worded, Tom, you pay for a specific task, which is to get you your CDL. But there is a trucking channel that's in existence today because of the simple fact that, yeah, you get what you pay for, but wouldn't it be nice if you could, in addition to that, get real world on the job training as it unfolds, in addition, while getting that CDL? And that trucking channel, I will link down below after the show. He's a great fella. I follow him. I recommend, if y'all want to know about what they don't teach you in CDL school, you can follow him. And I'm going to chase him because I want him on future shows. But we'll talk about that later. Girl in a Semi, in terms of the experiences they have today in school, what, in your eyes, do you think they should include that don't, other than that tandem example you cited a minute ago, to answer Tom's question?
Well, yeah, about 8 years ago, paid my money. It was just supposed to be just a brush up course, a 1 week brush up course at a CDL school, and just to see what they were teaching.
Right.
And I could go on and
bring
on
you on
about
in a
what
minute,
they don't
Grumpy.
teach. You're right. They teach you what it takes to go get your CDL, but that's not what they advertise to you.
Right.
And that's where the disconnect is.
Right.
Then this driver comes out of the CDL school, and they really got no choice to get hands-on training except for going to like a mega carrier and signing their year-long contract or whatever. I didn't go that far into the thing.
Right.
But there's not a lot of resources, and that's why personally I push people towards the community college route, because first of all, they can get grants for the tuition. Second of all, you're going to get the common sense stuff. You're going to get the, what it means to have a legal load on your trailer. Because you're not learning these things in these truck driving schools.
True.
So, there's big holes in the industry, and you can sit there and see these people go on and on about, well, if I went to the school now, I can't get a job,
Right.
And actually, the best place that they can go to get a job or to get the experience, go to the agriculture places that are hauling, the commodities and and go to the dump trucks and go to this and go to that,
Right.
and at least get road experience,
Right.
because our companies that I was associated with, you come out of school and you've got the common sense, because we got a lot of guys that were getting re-licensed because they were in the service.
Okay.
If you can pass the road test and you've got your common sense,
Yes.
and you can, they'll spend a week with a trainer like me teaching them the paperwork, the ELD, the customers, everything else that you need to know.
Right.
And then off you go. But there's not a lot of companies like that.
So, I mean, in your eyes, I mean, basically just common sense stuff they don't teach in today's schools would probably benefit. If there was a school out there that could include that kind of stuff, imagine the difference they could make. Not so much the money, because
Exactly.
I sense from midlife there's a divergence of opinion, because, you know, as he pointed out, schools today are designed to do one thing, and that's get you your CDL. Albeit that it makes sense, but if it were to include, as you say, real life experience, do as you can, common sense approach, you know, I think it would go a long way, and it would certainly work to improve. Look, Girl in a Semi, I thank you for your input. You are certainly always welcome to call in, because my understanding is you have a wealth of experience that will add tremendously to not only the industry, but our show as well. So call as you will. I thank you for your input today. And you have a
you have a great show. And I have to pull over and call you guys when I saw the title of the thing. I'm out running errands. So
well, stay tuned. Future shows, we're going to be talking a little bit deeper about this very topic in different respects. So I welcome your input anytime you'd like. Thank you for calling in today.
I'll be around. Have a good show. Thanks, guys, for having my back this week.
Thank you. You are certainly more than welcome. Thank you. As always.
Bye.
All right. So, I mean, to her
Let me add
point, I
something.
mean, you know, go ahead, John. I was just going to.
Sorry, there is a slight delay, so I didn't even know I was interrupting you until it was too late.
No. Yeah.
So, I got an important question for midlife and anybody else that kind of agrees with that thinking. If you're going to send your, and this is outside of trucking, but it does parallel. If you're going to send your kid to a school, would you prefer your kid go to a school that prepares them for life, or a school that prepares them for a test?
Okay, you've just hit on what's good for the person who's sending the kid to school. You've just hit on what's good for the kid. That's not what's good for the CDL school. Okay. Yes, it would be awesome for a driver to ride for a year with an experienced driver in the passenger seat, and the two of them banter back and forth for a year. That'd be awesome. It's also not practical.
Think about
the point is, the CDL school is there to make money. They don't make any more money if they spend 5 weeks teaching you how to slide your tandems, how to weigh your load, how to fill your tank, pick your fuel. Doesn't change the outcome. The outcome is you got a CDL.
I'll
give you a minute, John.
What you're saying.
Think about one thing. Go ahead, John.
Sorry about that.
No,
I can rebut one thing that you're saying. I get what you're saying, and it makes sense what you're saying, and I understand. I'm talking about for the betterment of trucking and society.
They don't care about that.
Hang on. I'm answering your major thing. You need to calm down, big older grumpier dude.
You guys are missing the forest for the trees, guys.
No,
you're too busy looking at the tree.
If you're gonna go to a school, they're all about making money, right? It's a business, right? So if you're gonna pick a school to go to, and you find out there's a school that you can go to not only get your CDL, and in 1 or 2 extra weeks, you can actually know how to be semi-roadworthy, like move your tandems and do simple tasks that you should know how to do to drive a truck. You're going to go to the school where you can learn a little extra if you take this job seriously, and that business
are you going to pay
more from that because more people will go there.
Are you going to pay more?
To answer that question, Tom, I'm going to chime in and say yes. I would pay more to get real qualified experience prior to driving as opposed to just the basics. Number one. Number two, think about from the perspective of not the person being taught, but the company hiring.
They don't care. They don't give a crap.
No,
they're going to train you. They want to train you their way to do it once you get there. I don't care what company you go to. If you go to a CDL school, you get your CDL license through a school. It doesn't matter whether it's a 3-week school, 5-week school, an accredited college, doesn't matter. You get your CDL. The first thing they do is pair your ass with a trainer. You go to Swift, you're with a trainer. You go to Millis, I don't care.
Think
They're
about
not.
this
They
way.
want you trained their way. They don't want you trained the way some school somewhere else sent you. They're going to
Think
train
about
you
this
their
point,
way.
though. Think about this point, though, Tom. From a company perspective, as much as you're right, you say they don't care, but there are certain things most companies do care about, and that's the bottom line. Now, think about this. If you're looking to hire from a school environment and you have a choice between hiring somebody with nothing versus somebody with a little something better, which are you going to do? Now, from the
I don't want
company's
either one of
perspective,
them.
if
I don't want either one of them, and that's the point.
That's
None
not
of the mega
that's not the
carriers
point.
want none of the mega carriers want a
That's not
candidate
the
who went
point,
to
Tom.
school somewhere else. They want kids.
That's not
They
the
want
point.
people who went through their school, had their training. They
The
don't
point,
want inexperienced drivers coming in that went to somebody else's school.
okay, let's not talk about that company then. The company I'm talking about is the one that does hire from the schools. And there are plenty of them out there. Prime is one of them. Warner's another one. I mean, there's a number of the mega
Call
carriers
Prime up
that
right
do.
now and ask them. If
Well,
you come
they
from
said it
somewhere else,
themselves.
they're going to call you a C seat, and you're going to have to do 60,000 miles in a truck with somebody.
Okay. That being said, let's get to the point that I'm trying to ask here. Now, when you're given a point of making a decision as a person running a company, you're hiring in from a school environment. You are yourself responsible for the bottom line. Now, as that person, you have two choices. You have a choice to hire somebody with a little bit of experience coming out of school that actually knows what they're doing versus somebody who's just got the basics with nothing. Where are you going to go to hire that person? Are you going to hire A or are you going to hire B?
I'm going to hire the guy who did not get somebody else's training. I want my guy training you. You come in with your CDL. I don't care. As long as you're legal, I want you trained with my guy. I don't,
Right.
You're going to come through and you told me that this guy trained you. I don't have a clue what he trained you. I don't know how good he is.
Right.
That's why every place sends you through a check ride. And
Right.
then
Well,
any good carrier puts you through training.
I think
Let
the
me
point
use
that
your
I'm
same
making,
take
reasoning
people.
on you.
well,
Let me
I
use
think
your
the point that I'm
same
making is
reasoning.
getting lost in translation by this training idea. Gerlin and Semi brought up a good point, and that's that when you talk about what you learn in, let's say, hypothetically 6 weeks, because that's what it took me, 6 weeks to get my CDL. The point she made is some schools just don't cut it. They do their job. As you say, Tom, they're only supposed to do one job. I get that. But what better opportunity would it be for a person to actually get that plus?
Here's the difference. Here's the difference. I went to Millis. Millis had a vested interest in my success because they were going to put me in one of their trucks. So I went through 3 weeks of school in the classroom, backing pad, riding in a group truck. Then they didn't say, here's the keys to a Kenworth T680 with a beautiful TV in the back and a brand new mattress and all that other good stuff. They said, no, now you're going to go out with another train. You're going to go out with a trainer for 15,000 of your miles. Now Prime does it as 30,000, or now I think it's 40,000, 30,000, but that's truck miles. Right. My trainer had to be in the passenger seat on duty while I was driving down the road.
Right.
And in the event he had to drive, and he drove 2,000 miles, I drove 15,000 over a 6-week period, which included Thanksgiving. So we took a little time off. That is when the training happened. The carrier had a vested interest in my success. The vested interest is they're going to put me in a piece of their equipment. I'm going to be hauling their loads. I'm wearing a shirt with their name on it. That's why when I tell people it used to be true that you did not want that 1-year obligation. Now you want that 1-year obligation because I had a 1-year obligation. They knew they had me for a year. So for that year, I was going to be hauling cargo for them, and they needed to convince me to stay for another year, which they were not successful in doing.
Right.
I'm going to weigh in on this subject here.
Go ahead, Frank.
Tom.
I wonder if you're going to hear from you.
Let me tell you what. I've been through the same school twice, okay? When I first started my career, and then the second time whenever I had to go back and start a Class A driving again because I hadn't drove Class A in a while. I had to refresh, but I still had to go through the full course.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what. The moment I got out of the refresh, the company that sent me there to go through the refresh, paid for the school and all that, I'd sign a 1-year contract with them. also made sure that I went out with a trainer again for, I don't know, I was out with him for darn near a month and a half. Not quite.
Exactly.
It would have been less. It would have been less than that, but they screwed up and thought that we were a team truck because that's what his truck was labeled as. So they were running this differently. So I wasn't getting all the miles accredited to me because it was showing as a team. And he's like, no. You figure this out. He has got, this man has got it. And all he really needed, he's a good driver. All he really needed was to learn the paperwork and learning how to use the Qualcomm system again. Otherwise, get him out of this truck, get him in a truck. And the moment that he got me back to the terminal, they also have another type of training seminar that you have to go through, which is a special course that you have to take and learn. You have to be able to back properly. You do this before you go out with a trainer too, during orientation. But when you come back, you have to do it once again and prove to them that you're doing well. Well, I did this course at night with hardly any light, and this was done with my trainer, and my trainer said there has been no one that I know of, that I've even heard of, that's done that course at nighttime as well as you have. And in fact, I haven't even heard of anybody doing it at night. So, that's what I'm telling you. If you're stuck with a good trainer or you've got already some previous experience, it helps. And trust me, just because you come fresh out of a school doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to have a chance to learn what you need to learn. You've got to be with somebody that cares enough about training. You don't need to be stuck with somebody that just I'll just straight out say, you don't want to be stuck with somebody that's about 6 months experience on the road period that works for Swift, and then you wind up getting out there and not having experience. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And most of those people that are doing those training, they're not there to train. They want that extra pay. They want somebody to operate that truck while they're rolling in the dough. And that's wrong. You can't do that.
You just hit on it. Like you said, you left the school, you went to training.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
but the problem the guy in the chat said,
do that.
The guy in the chat has a problem. The problem he has is a very common problem right now. He went to a truck driving school, and he's going to trucking company after trucking company. Every one of them is telling him, oh, you got to have a year's experience. Oh, you got to have 6 months experience. That's the problem with trucking school now. 2 years ago, if you had a Pulse and a CDL, there were carriers that would take you. And they were willing, and if they were in Chicago or Illinois, they were willing to waive one of the two.
Yeah.
But
the market doesn't demand that today.
Now, in today's market, if you show up and you got your CDL, but you got no experience, and I don't care if you got your CDL because you drove a school bus and then went and took Class A later or whatever, if you walk in and you've got no OTR experience, they're not interested. Come back and see us when you got a year's experience.
For every company.
It's not true for every company, but it's true for most of them. And this guy who's in our chat is an example. He's going carrier to carrier to carrier, and nobody's hiring him. And this is happening left and right. There are forums where people are wanting it out.
That's what the market's asking for right now. The market.
The fact of it is,
it's not as demanding as it used to be. Now,
well, let John tell us where. John's got a place, and I think it will help out the guy in the chat.
True. Yeah.
I just told him to email me, and I'll tell him.
Yeah. Well, my point that I was going to make a second ago was that it wasn't long ago I was talking with somebody, and I forget when and where, but the point was made that it is now, today, a driver's market where it didn't used to be. You
mean carrier's market?
Well, yeah. You used to be able to walk in and get whatever you demanded. And now you can't do that. You have to, unfortunately, take what is given you, because that's all there is. If you can't see it, see you later. That's I guess as you term the carrier's market, but it's really it's really not the same market today as it once was.
And that's kind of where I'm going right now. The factor of it is I'm have to be in the market of looking for a new job and everything. I've actually had to go back. Of course, the company I left, they wanted me to come back. They didn't want me to leave to begin with. So I've chosen to go back to them so I can get back in the game and get going and get caught up on things. But,
at least you keep your experience that way. At least you keep your experience that way.
Exactly. some people, like you were saying, if they jump from place to place to place to place, they're going to get a bad reputation to where a lot of companies are like, he ain't going to stay very long. So no, we don't want him, And I mean, I kind of had that track record a long time ago when I first began as a greenhorn. I didn't like one company, so I left it, went to another one. It's not a good idea. Try to stay with them at least a minimum of 6 months to a year before you try to jump to ship to another one. That's just how I feel about that.
I want to dive into one. But go ahead, John.
Sorry, I keep interrupting everybody because I'm on a delay. I'm not trying to be rude, I swear.
No, you're not. You're good.
The only thing I would add to that is that not to what Frank said, but about what we were talking about the schooling is most of the mega carriers, honestly, if you're coming into the industry and you're talking a carrier that has under 1,000 trucks, yeah, what he's saying is 100% true. They're going to want to train you the way that they do things. But mega carriers, that's not always true. I mean, when I started, and I know they still operate this way today, the company that I had started with, literally a week on the road where the guy slept while I was driving and then they handed me keys. There are smart people in these mega carriers that realize, and I'm not calling them smart, it's actually really stupid, but they are smart because it makes more sense for them to throw a warm body in a seat that's undertrained in a brand new truck that they could crash. That to them, that makes them more money than to send you out and train you for weeks or months at a time, which is what the correct thing to do there would be. So
they do need.
I mean,
well,
if you want to talk about if it's all about money, then the company's not doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, to your point, John, they do need to actually realign their goals because there's a lot of companies out there that don't have minimum requirements for training, and I think that's ridiculous. More to your point, because the guy I trained with back in 2012, when I first got my CDL, he had at the time he was a trainer, over 20 years experience behind the wheel, and I have heard stories about people only having, 6 weeks behind the wheel, and they're already being given bump and pay and added responsibility of training people. Yep. That, to your point, is ridiculous. Yep. And we've talked about it before on this very show, about what I believe needs to be a minimum requirement for training. In terms
of regulation you're looking for.
No, you're
company policy.
No.
Company policy.
I think it's and more to your funny bone there, Tom. I do think that needs to be a company policy across the board, not a regulation. But
is a company policy a regulation?
No.
Okay, I'm nicknaming you. You are now Mr. Semantics. No, by golly, no. It's common sense, Tom. Think about it.
I agree. Yes. It should be. But the problem is the companies in Chicago aren't going to implement it unless it's a law or regulation.
True.
They're not.
True.
And so what'll happen is the good carriers implement it.
Doing their research.
But what happens is the good carrier, let's say you got 5 good carriers that implement his little plan. The problem is you got 5 more that didn't. Who's running cheaper? Who gets to stay in business?
Now you're talking about advantage edge. I get that. Yeah. But go ahead, John. I think we just lost the signal.
We lost John.
Yeah, well, he'll come back. Frank, you got anything to add to this? I mean, quite lively and spirited. I'm assuming you have an opinion, and when it comes down to training and what is good for the industry. I mean, think about it, Frank. If you had a choice between going to a school that was offering better training, a little bit more money, versus less training, a little less money, which would you take there, old man? Well, John fell out, and Grumpy is still. Well, I'll put that question to you, Tom. Two possibilities: more money, more training; less money, less training. Which would you prefer?
It's not going to work that way, so it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Obviously, we're going to say more money, more money. The problem is that's not how it works.
Well, I mean, the industry overall is suffering, and I think we've covered today a number of reasons why.
There's no more money. The carriers don't have any money.
Yep. What can we do better to make that turn around? What do you think?
Well,
what do you think
a question I posed. what do you do for your carrier? Because right now, a new truck's $225,000. That was not 3-4 years ago. That truck before COVID was 180.
Yes.
Getting parts, you're going to wait for parts now. There's downtime. Right. Things are expensive now. It's costing more. It's costing more for insurance, far more. It's costing more for employees. It's costing more for employee benefits. Yep. All of these things are hurting the carriers. And I know everybody's like, oh, the mean mega carriers, they can afford it. Well, yeah. I don't know if you've looked at the reports recently, but Warner's what, 105% of revenue? Heartland's 108% of revenue? That means they're losing money. All they're trying to do is stay afloat until this market changes.
Right.
You know, and well, that's the ones we can see.
Despite that, we see the rates still in the toilet and they're not going anywhere.
They're going down.
They are. They're going in absolutely the wrong direction. I think room for another discussion and another live is certainly why that's taking place. So I'm not going to dive into that, but let's leave the guests anyway with, and by the way, you're the only one because everybody else lost internet. Let's leave the audience with something positive. I mean, what can we learn out of this and move forward? What can we do to improve things? What are your thoughts there, Tom?
I think we need to start thinking a little bit more broadly. What's good for the carrier is good for us as employees. If you're a company driver. Now, if you're a lease operator, it's also could apply there too. But and it's easier to look at it from a company driver. What can I do to make my carrier, make this particular run that I'm getting ready to do more profitable for my carrier? I'm probably not going to make any more money on it because I'm going to drive the same number of miles or get paid for the same number of miles. I'm going to get paid for the same number of stops. So what can I do to make it more profitable for the company?
Right.
I can't deliver prior to 0800 because they don't open. So why should I drive 70 miles an hour?
Right. Exactly.
You know.
Okay. I'm going to let one more opportunity go by. Tom, thank you.
There's John. John's there.
I was just going to ask him if he had any closing thoughts as I'm about to close the show out. What are your thoughts in terms of something we can leave the audience with inspiration? Looking forward, what do you think we can do, aside from what Tom just said, to better prepare these people and, you know, look ahead with a little bit of optimism? What are your thoughts, John?
Well, this is what I would say. I understand we're in a horrible downturn where there's a lot of truckers out here having hard times paying their rent, hard times buying food, hard times getting through all of this. And this isn't going to feed your family this week. But I do believe that we're starting an upswing. And like WCF Invader says in the comment section, trucks are very low in price right now, and they're having trouble. The dealerships are having trouble getting rid of the trucks. So in the near future, when the trucking industry does on the upswing, and it's much more noticeable.